In this Uncommon Man podcast, we go into the life of Jody Bevan, who is possibly one of the smartest guys I know. And we dive into one of the most basic things that help men, women, and their families experience greater health, more energy, and it's something that is in their daily life that is already existing that they may not be aware of, and it's something that they can tweak to make a massive difference. So I promise you, out of this experience, out of this podcast, you are going to get a really firm understanding of some really basic tools that you can put into your life that are going to drastically change both the health from an external and external point of view of you, your family, and your loved ones. Welcome here to Jody. Now, Jody is a wizard when it comes to the health and energy of individuals, and it's done in the most peculiar way. The reason why it's the most peculiar way, because it's something you're doing already that you can change and completely alter the performance in your life. This is what makes this so amazing, because it's something we do on the daily. Most of us should be doing more of, but what Jody does and what he has kind of both invented and introduced to professional sportsmen and the everyday Joe blogs like myself has absolutely changed the game and the level of our health and the level of our energy. And welcome, Jody. Absolutely awesome to have you here, mate. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated it.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, mate. Can you just we were chatting just before we jumped on, and you just rattled off a couple of names. Now, I'm pretty shocking when it comes to sports people and famous people. Maybe it's because I'm too self-involved and I'm always just looking at my own life and not other people's, but that could be the case. Or I just want you to kind of give me some insights into what different sports you have worked in terms of a professional level, what you did with your guys, and what you saw change them. Like, you've mentioned some crazy numbers in terms of performance going up by 22 to 27%, which when you're an athlete, that sort of gain is insane. We're talking about the top 1% of athletes in the world, and you're wanting to make fractional changes. You know, I do very, very amateur cycling, and I'm like, if I could get a 3% gain somewhere, I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. 22 to 27%. We're like, holy shit. Walk me through it. What was going on?
It comes down to hydration and the body's ability to use water effectively and efficiently. Has a lot to do with the amount of energy in the water. Now, back in the 2011, 12, 13, I was working with a lot of pro athletes. So professional jockeys, professional AFL guys, Joe Watson, Tom Rockcliffe, Jack Redden, Kevin Mialamu from the All Blacks, Christian Alifano from the Wallabies, early in those guys' career. And those numbers that I mentioned to you before, I put Jack Redden and Tommy Rockcliffe were sharing a place in Brisbane, and got them on the water at round 10. And I was touching base with them every couple of weeks, and they were flicking me tickets to the games and bits and pieces. And how you going, fellas? Yeah, good. Yeah, pretty good. And so what I did was there's a stat site called Final Siren, where they put all the disposal rates and all the stats around the game on each of the players and bits and pieces. So at the end of the season, I tallied up their disposal rates and for those two players from the Lions, and they're on a losing team. And at the beginning of the following season, they were down in Melbourne, so I interviewed them. I said, "Oh, so what did you think of the war? The last half of the season?" They were like, "Oh, it was pretty good. We're always looking for those 1% and 2%. I said, "Well, do you know what your actual stats were?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah. Well, no, I don't know what the actual stats were, but yeah, we definitely felt better, recovered better, and did all that good sort of stuff." And I said, "Well, Jack, your disposal rate over those last 10 games of the season's increased by 27.3%, and I'm pretty sure Tommy Rockcliffe was like 24%." And they were just like blown away. Now, as you said, like sports guys, it's a hard gig to get those to deal with those guys. They're inside a system. where, I can't tell you how many ding-dongs I've had with sports nutritionists and their hydration crews and bits and pieces. But at the end of the day, hydration's everything. And, Christian Alfano said to me, "Oh, mate," he said, "that water is what got me into the Wallabies." He said, "It just gave me that split. When I went on that water, I just had that split second of extra time to make a better decision to either kick, pass, cut the gap, whatever." So, mate, it's been a journey. I moved away from the sports guys just because it was so time intensive, and they're focused on themselves. And just
So
that's cool. And pushing against the system was also bloody difficult.
Yeah. I mean, we'll dive into that more because you're basically going against the giant system as it is. But for those guys listening, like, when we talk about hydration, I'll work you into this towards the end, because it's not just you turning on the tap at home and becoming Superman. Like, there are some things that Jody's going to share that are really going to be able to transform the way you do things and how it's going to alter your energy and your health. When it comes to everyday Joe Bloggs, like myself,
Yep.
What are some of the things you're hearing from them with what you've changed in their life?
Well, most of the people, like, I sort of tell them when they invest in the systems that I sell now, is I am going to turn you into a water snob, and what ordinarily what happens is when they go away from where their source water is, usually at home, they don't drink as much. And but you can speak to that. You had 6 months away from home recently.
Mate, I tell you what, so I was trained under the system of Paul Check, and the way I found out about Jody was through another Checkie. When I was a Check professional, like, we go through holistic lifestyle coaching, and one of the things we look at quite deeply is hydration, nowhere near as deeply as Jody. And this guy was like, "You've got to meet Jody. You've got to have a look at what he's doing with the system." I had a meeting with Jody, saw what he was doing. I was like, "Cool, we're building a house. I want this. In fact, I want two, because I want one for my parents as well." So I got two. It was about 3 years later till mum and dad put theirs in the house. But in that time, people come to my house to fill up water. So every time mum and dad would come, they'd have empty wine bottles. They'd come round to their house with half a dozen or a dozen wine bottles and just fill them up with the water from my house, and then off they go. Dad would come here, would meet here for a bike ride. He'd fill up his bottles. And like you said, we'd go somewhere else, and I'd just be like, "What the hell is in that?" And so suddenly you're drinking 3.5 liters here a day, 3 liters a day, and it's easy. You grab that bottle, and I don't know if anybody's sweated and exercised, and you have that first beer, and it just, like, the beer disappears. It's like, shit, it's just evaporated. That's what it's like drinking water on the daily here. It just goes in, and you feel satiated. You almost feel like you're eating this water. It is amazing. It really is. So they become a water snob, but do they share any of the stuff that change in their life with you?
Yeah, absolutely. From everything from improved sleep to, I just go better, Jody. Like, I'm just more productive during the day. For the average Joe Bloggs, it's really hard to manage what you don't measure, right?
Yeah,
and so like I say to guys, like, just take a little bit of a note how you feel at the different points of the day, right? Now we're all there'll be lots of guys on this call, as I've been in the past, guilty of what I call the 3 o'clock pick me up, right? You start doing laps of the office or the workplace or home, looking for that sugar rush. You've had lunch, you've come out of the lunch coma, and you're now looking for that pick me up. And molecular hydrogen, which we'll touch on later, is one of those little hacks you can use to power yourself through the day. And I'll go deeper into molecular hydrogen when you give me the thumbs up. But
we've got so much to dive into. Yeah.
But one of the things, ordinarily, it's the woman. Like, if I looked at my avatars, would be women in their 35s to 50s that have reasonable disposable income, they're health conscious, they want the best for their family and kids. And it's the one thing they can do where they're not forcing somebody to change what they eat or go to bed early or whatever. They can get an elevated level of health for those participants, family members, by just changing the water that they're drinking. And, you know, I can't tell you how many women ring me up and say, oh, I can't believe how good my hair and my skin is. So, fellas, if you're on this call and you want your missus to be happy, the hair and skin deal is
What about skin conditions like kids and stuff with eczema and things like that? Yeah, do you often hear massive change?
Yeah. So, like, I had a guy buy one of my units today from Brisbane, and you know, he paid $2,500 for it. And when you invest $2,500, they give you a phone call. So, hey mate, how'd you find out about us? You know, what made you choose this out of all the different water systems that you can find online? Blah 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 blah. He goes, oh mate, I was staying at a mate's place for a couple of weeks. The missus and I had a bit of a bust up, and I've just got to have one of these things. I can't do without this water. And I said, well, did you know that, you know, you've done the right thing drinking water wise, but it takes 3 days for the skin to repair to recover from a chlorine event. So if you're showering in chlorinated water, you're breathing in those fumes, you're killing the microbiome in your skin, which is as important as the microbiome on the inside. So, you know, we say, you know, the experts tell us that, you know, it's the sun that causes cancer. Well, I'd call bullshit on that. You know, if your skin's unhealthy and we're in artificial light, and I could go on about that for too long because I studied quantum biology for 4.5 years with a neurosurgeon. But getting your water right is fundamental to all life. Like there's two parts that you've got to get right for ultimate health. One's your light environment. Two is your water. Now, when it comes to water, most of the municipalities now gas their water with ammonia, the chlorine. They use chlorine and ammonia together. And most of the filtration companies out there, the zero duty of care. And what I mean when I say that is it's really easy to make water taste good. It's difficult to make it healthy. And there's 3 parts to creating great water. 1, you've got to take the contaminants out. Well, most of the filtration equipment out there makes the water taste okay, but doesn't do the job with the ammonia, or doesn't take the fluoride out, or, you know, we've got now what they call forever chemicals, which I think is a bullshit call anyway. PFAS and PFOS, which is the fire retardant that's now got on, that they use around airports and for firefighting, has now got into the water, and it's a bad deal. You know, there's pharmaceuticals in water now. There's all this shit in water that we just don't need. So cleaning the water up is the first part. The second part is restoring the natural movement of the water, vortex movement. So nature's way of energizing everything is by vortex. You think about your DNA helix, waves, cyclones, the Milky Way, it's all about the spin. And so when you restore water's natural movement, it re-energizes itself. Nowhere in nature does water go in a straight line, but in man's wisdom, we push everything in a straight line, right? And what happens is the water gives away all its energy, and then it's got no way of recharging itself, which is what the vortex does. So it's in a flaccid state, and water being a capacitor, so its job is to share energy and information. When it's in a low energy state, it can't do that as effectively or efficiently as it should. You know, when you drink from, like you're at a fast moving stream, or you drink from a waterfall, you're like, oh, yes, you're pumped, right? Well, that's because the water's in a natural state, and a lot of people say, oh, I don't like taste of water, I don't like water, and to me that's only natural because the water's not in a natural state. It's full of chemical, it's full of crap, and more importantly, it's lost that natural energy. And so restoring that is you can't have optimal water without restoring that. And then
I have so many things. Yeah, go for the third part. Share the third part.
The third part is there is as many ways to enhance water or enhance, depends on where you're from and how you say it, but there's as many ways to do that as there is to contaminate water. But there's some fundamentals you can do to it that make the water more absorbable for the body, more usable, more friendly. You run it past things like magnetics, tourmaline, far infrared, magnesium, coral calcium, which is what's in that system that you've got at your place, mate. Oh, and something else called, and you give the water a negative charge, right? So the charge state of the water. When I say negative, it's not like as an electrically negative, not like as a boo-hoo negative.
Yeah. I'm gonna crack through each one of these. So first things first, why is chlorine even bad to the gut and to the skin? What does it do? Because chlorine is the main concern people have.
Chlorine's there, so the water that arrives at your place doesn't kill you. Kills cholera and the bacteria and everything that might be in the water. It's called potable water, right? Oh, to me, it's like comes out of the potty. It's shit. It's terrible. Yeah.
So what is that doing to your gut?
Yes. Well, you're killing the microbiome of the gut, right? And same with gardeners. People that garden, like they spend a fortune on plants and fertilizer and that, and then they put chlorinated water on their garden, killing the beneficial bacteria, microbes in the water. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? But we don't think about that because we're so disconnected from nature. Yeah. That's our biggest issue. We've gone that far from where we should be and what our biological design is that we're getting sick. Yeah,
on the basic stuff. So the next part is, and I actually share this because it's something that you can notice because it's something my old man he loves his lawn. Absolutely fucking loves his lawn. When I first started talking, you were on speakerphone actually when I said, and Dad's sitting there, I think about 2 days earlier, he talked to me, he's like, man, when it rains, this place just pops. Here's a beautiful garden, about 2.5 acres of garden and lawn. And he's like, man, when it rains here, this place, the sun comes out the next day and this place is just bing. He's like, it's totally different to, I put the sprinklers on and it's just not the same. And it was funny because 2 days later, we're on the phone and he's looking at me going, it's exactly what I'm talking about. He's like, energized water, when it falls from the sky and it comes down, and you explain this to me, it has this energy to it. Same when you drink from a stream, same when you do all that stuff. But when it comes out of your pipes through the irrigation, it's dead. Now,
lifeless.
You've done some work with farms because you not just work with professional athletes. You've done work with farms with the same water, but on a large scale, right?
Yeah.
What have you seen change doing that? Using the water systems that you have.
The first thing they notice is the pumps don't work as hard because the water's got energy. It's easier to push, so they save in the amount of money it costs them to pump it. Second thing is because the water's energized and it gives the water a negative charge, the soil uniformity. So when you use what I call bulk water, and you put it in the garden, that water is going to find the fastest way to the bottom, right, through the soil profile.
Yeah, okay, like drainage. Okay,
because it's got a positive charge. That bulk water's got a positive charge, and it's sort of almost like it's hydrophobic, right? So hydrophobic means that you have hydrophilic, which is water loving, and hydrophobic, which is water not so loving. And so everything has to work harder. So when you put water in there that's got higher energy, the microbes work better. The amount of fertilizer you need, the sprays, the plant's more robust. And farmers are hard yards to sell to because they are like bakers. They have a little recipe where they do this, they do this, they do this, they do this, and they get that result. So
I've done that for generations.
they've also. I put them. I'm almost at the place where I'm about to put them in the athletes bucket. To be honest with you, we actually today.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yesterday we had our first article in the Irrigation and Turf magazine, Irrigation Australia, and the 2 phone calls this morning from Brisbane Council and Perth Council saying, "Hey, yeah, we need this," because what happens is that, well, because they save, like, we've got a unit on, we're monitoring by satellite at the moment. So we're taking satellite images every 5 days of the field. We wound their water back 25%. And the same will happen for you. If you start drinking water that's in a high energy state, you don't need as much, right?
25%.
Yeah,
because you're holding it.
Yeah,
you're actually hydrating.
Yeah, because the profile's more hydrated. So they save on pumping costs. For farmers, what that means is they get better germination rates. They get an increased yield, like a brick. Their bricks value. So the bricks is a measure of the sugars in anything. That's how they determine how healthy something is. So they measure the bricks value of everything from grass to bloody, to fruit to whatever, broccoli, cauliflower. It doesn't matter what you're growing. You can measure the bricks value. And when something's got a low bricks value, it's not very healthy, which means it's more pest. It attracts more pests, because insects are only there in nature to take down what's compromised, and so then you don't need as many fertilizers. You don't need as many sprays, and I could talk for a while about that. But
do you have like numbers on the increase in yields and decrease of fertilizers and stuff for the farms that you have done this for?
Yeah, so and again, it depends A, on the crop, B, on the soil profile. Obviously sandy soils are different to loam, clay soil, blah 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 blah. But you can say without shadow of a doubt, the minimum water saving they're going to get is 20%. If they do nothing, 20% water saving, they're going to use. I tell people it's mandatory you cut your fertilizers back by a third. Mandatory, because you'll end up burning stuff because there's too much nutrient coming to the plant. So cut it back by a third and monitor. A third. I had a farmer that was growing pumpkins, right? She wanted to see how hard a vortex device would push this thing. So she didn't, and she's a conventional sprayer, but also uses biology. She didn't spray for the first, it's a 4-month crop, and for the first 3 months, she didn't spray at all. So that was a 75% reduction. She grew the same crop on the same patch from the year before, so she could compare. And it's Western Australia, so we get 6 months where there's no rain. 2 days ago we got our first rain in 6 months, and she was like, "Jody, I used 50% less water. That pond over there would be empty now if I didn't use the vortex device." So it's significant.
Unreal. Okay, that's unreal. Okay, and this may be a bit of a deep dive. We may have to do another one on this, but you shared the energy and consciousness of water. You said it transmits that. So what are we saying there? What are you saying?
Where does consciousness come from?
Yeah. So what are you telling me about water?
Well, water is life, and it's the fuel for life. So if you put that into a state where it can work in harmony with the nature that is you, and that's a big problem we've got in society today. Most people think nature's something out there. They don't realise that you're a product of that nature, right? And your overall wellness will be determined by how well you sync with that system. Now, you went around in the 70s like I was, or like your dad was. The environment we live in today, I know I only look 23, but that's okay.
Water, mate. Water.
Half my lies aren't true. The environment we live in today between the light, and when I say light, I'm talking about Wi-Fi, I'm talking about any electromagnetic frequency. All that stuff has got us on the downer, right? You know, we've never had more technology than we've got today, like for the sickness industry or the health industry. But with the advances in medicine, we've got a society that's never been sicker. Why is that? It's fundamentally because we're so disconnected from what our biological design. We're designed to be outside creatures. Most people, on average, I think the stats in the US, that people spend 93% of their time indoors.
I heard a stat the other day. It was 97. It was something crazy, like just crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, look at me. I'm inside right now. No, it's just mental.
Yeah, well, put us this way. If we'd had this call 2 days ago, before it rained,
I
would have been outside on the balcony.
Living the dream. Okay. Let's sneak into something that's come pretty big in the industry being made. I think famous, probably Gary Brecker has probably been the guy who's brought it in the most.
He's definitely helped.
Yeah. He loves it. I'm a bit of a fan of the guy, to be honest. I heard his story. I wasn't originally. I kind of thought it was all a bit financial stuff, but I heard a recent story about him, and I was like, that's actually pretty cool what his mission is. And I was like, right, tell me, because this has a bit of a tale from a personal point of view, because before doing Coast to Coast, we were having a chat, and you're like, you got to take these, bro. And I was like, oh man, I'm supplemented up to the roof. He's like, just take these, you'll be sweet. And I gave them to the old man, gave them to me, and we were off like rockets. But
well, mate, you're as crook as a dog.
I had COVID, and then I did half Ironman, and then I wouldn't have survived that half Ironman without this. I was cooked. And then just coming back afterwards, like my VO2 got knocked by 6 points after COVID.
Yeah.
And it took me ages to climb back up, but I just started taking it and started climbing back out again. But the big topic is hydrogen and why. Like when I think hydrogen, I think of fuel cells and all sorts of things. Suddenly it's like, you want hydrogen in your water? Like, why?
Well, that's unbound hydrogen. Hydrogen's obviously in the water because it's H2O. And H2O is just the average, right? Yeah, there's H9O4, there's H3O, because those bonds in water are changing every femtosecond. So every billionth of a second, those bonds are changing flat out. You look at that water, you think there's nothing going on, nothing going down.
Yeah.
But where that water is in regards to the edge of, whether it's at the top or next to the thing, there's just shit going down everywhere. And that's the thing that I love about water. I like to say to people that water's very humbling, because you'll never know everything about water. But what I know, I can help a lot of people with, but I don't have all the answers, man. I'd spend hours and hours each day reading shit that's, like topologically, and it's mind blowing.
Okay.
But hydrogen. Okay, let's go back to the story of hydrogen. Hydrogen is 75% the fuel of the sun, right?
Okay.
And 24% helium, then a smattering of other bits and pieces.
Okay.
Now, the sun gives your cells the information. So there's two things come from the sun. You get information quanta, which is the little packets of things are sent from the sun called quanta, and one of them's an energy quanta and the other one's an information quanta, right? You can feel the energy quanta on your skin when you go out in the sun. The information quanta is the software for your cells, right? That's why it's so important to get in the sun. Now, and that happens through nuclear magnetic resonance, which you don't even want to go down that story. But basically, This is the hardware. The programming needs to come from that thing, because we're diurnal animals. Every single biological function in your body is driven by light, right? And different frequency of light at different times of the day trigger different responses. And I'll just jump quickly and give you an example. One that's really easy to get is we now have LED lights that save screens, but save energy, blah, 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 right? What blue light does, and back in the old days when I was a kid, the light bulbs had they were incandescent bulbs, and they made red light, which is really energy inefficient to make, but they were like the sun. So the sun's 42% red light, and I know we're going off on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important. So there's always more red light in the sun than there is blue light. So and blue light's pro growth, and red light is anti-inflammatory, right? So you've got the go and the mediation, or the anti-inflammatory effect. Now the LEDs, the screens, and all that stuff that we're in front of at night, when we're under that stuff, you keep telling yourself it's lunchtime biologically, right? And so you can sit up all night, and it's when you're exhausted you go to bed, and then you wake up feeling stuffed, right? And that's because blue light suppresses the release of melatonin, and melatonin is what puts you to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So blue light suppresses that. But more importantly, what happens with melatonin is melatonin drives the two processes in the body of autophagy and apoptosis, which is programmed cell suicide and cell recycling. Now, when you don't have enough melatonin running through the system, and you don't want to supplement it, when you don't have enough running through the system, you get misfolded proteins. And when misfolded proteins keep folding on themselves over time, you end up with disease. You'll end up with some sort of mitochondrial disease. Now hydrogen, let's get back to the hydrogen story. Hydrogen is what your cells, your mitochondria, those little organelles inside the cells, and there's between 500 and 5,000 in every cell in your body, depending on where it is. And so obviously the heart and the brain have the highest density of mitochondria. And the only cells that don't have mitochondria are red blood cells. And you'll notice they're shaped like little donuts. If you've ever seen one, they're shaped like little donuts to collect the sun through the skin. Right? So hydrogen,
this is blowing my mind today. This is fantastic.
Hydrogen drives everything. It's the fuel of life. It's the most abundant substance in the universe. Okay? And so what happens is you actually charge separate. You use, people go on about, protein, fats, carbohydrates. It's a deep dive down that. But at the end of the day, fundamentally what that's about is the hydrogen you get out of it. Okay? Your cells don't use fat. They don't use carbohydrates. They don't use protein. What you do is you break the hydrogen out of those. The hydrogen's used by the mitochondria to create something called ATP, adenotriphosphate, right? That's the energy currency of the body. So when you use unbound hydrogen, which is what molecular hydrogen is, it's unbound hydrogen that's ready for the body to use. That means the body doesn't have to break it out. Now you create only 1/3 of your energy approximately comes from food. 2/3 comes from light. Right?
2/3 of my energy comes from light. 2/3
of the energy, and so your eyes are full of the omega-3 called DHA. They say eat fish because it's a really healthy fat. Well, it's the only fat that can turn photonic energy, so light energy, into DC electric current. And so what happens is you've got tons of it in your eyes, and you've actually got little slits in the bottom of your eyes. And we're going way off track, but it's cool. You've got little slits in your eyes called the RPE, and they let through between 1% and 3% of UV A and B light. you've got tons of DHA in your eyes. It charge separates water to create energy. So when you put sunglasses on, you stop the UVA and UVB light coming into the body through the eyes. There's so much more happens with your eyes. They're not just cameras to see. They control every biological function in the body. But
I wear sunglasses all the time. I'm going to have to stop wearing sunglasses.
Oh,
gone.
Cut them, dude. It'll be a struggle for the first probably 3 to 4 weeks. But the guys and girls I've got off them, like Jody, I just can't believe how much better I feel without them. It's ridiculous.
Okay. All right.
But back to hydrogen. So hydrogen is, when it's in that unbound form, it's a selective antioxidant, which means it only takes out oxygen and free radicals. It doesn't take out.
Give us why is that important? Why is that important for oxygen-free radicals?
Oxygen-free radicals are the ones that rust you. Okay, they're the ones that age you. They're the ones that they're angry little individual oxygen molecules that just run around looking to attach to something. So when you give them an unbound molecule of hydrogen, they just turn into water. There's no residue, not like vitamin C or any other antioxidant you take. There's a residue. Like you take vitamin C, it donates the electron, then there's something for the body to process. With hydrogen, it's done. And you know, this, like, the numbers are staggering. Like, you got trillions of cells in your body, but across a human hair, there's something like 3 million hydrogen molecules, the width of a human hair, right? So the numbers are big, and it's all on a macro scale. So the selective antioxidant, just taking out free radicals, helps. The raw energy that you're putting into the body is, you know, you've just got more energy. It's, mate, this put it this way, I don't think there is a better supplement that anybody can take than molecular hydrogen. Just so happens I've got some left.
Not anymore, mate. Not anymore. Don't tell everybody, because my stocks are getting low.
Yeah, well, mate, I started on the hydrogen journey in 2015, right? And people just thought I was a kook. And Gary Brecker has done like, I've got hydrogen machines, those little bottles. I had them like in 2015. Couldn't give them away to save myself. Anyway.
So what is the fastest and easiest way for people? On that note, like, what is the fastest and easiest way to get more hydrogen into them?
Yeah, fastest and easiest way is tablets.
As to what?
It's those tablets.
Right.
Hydrogen tablets. Dropping those elemental magnesium tablets, you drop them into the water, because what happens is they're attracted to the elemental magnesium, and the oxygen's attracted to it, and to bind with it has to throw off the hydrogen. Now you'll get about 12 parts per million. If you 2 tablets and a couple of 100 mils of water, about 12 parts per million. And yeah, man, it's a game changer, absolute game changer. Now, how good they are, you know firsthand how good they are. Look, I've used them with pro athletes. I've got a 93-year-old grandmother that she goes bonkers when she runs out of them. She's like, get me some hydrogen, right? She hasn't been sick for 7 years since she started taking them. She's 93. Through COVID, through everything, she's had nothing, right? It's a good deal, dude. It's a good deal.
I hadn't taken them for a couple of weeks, and I popped them in last night before I went to bed. I had a sleep score of 97. I had the best like REM and deep sleep ratio last night. I think 2 hours, 5 minutes exactly of each. And I woke up this morning like, it's on. Days on. It's like double session pay. Good to go.
Drop off. And look, and if you decide to go down that road, I'll give you a link to. It's not my stuff. There's a guy in the States that I really trust that does the research, because as per usual, the devil's in the details. You can get those bottles now. There's junk ones out there you can get for bloody $50, $100. Don't buy them. There's a guy in the US that I know that sells them. They ain't cheap, but they are cheap, if you know what I mean. I think they're about $300 US.
Mate, if you went into my supplement cupboard, there'd be easily a couple of grams worth of stuff in there that I just stopped using. I got my H2, I'm good to go, and then I have some primal energies, that's some mushroom stuff that I use for basically brain operations. I'm like, other than that, I'm like, there we go, I'm sorted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So getting your water down pat, do it, dudes. You know, I can help any of the guys in the crew that are watching this if they want to chat water.
I'll make sure they have the opportunity.
Yeah, look, it's the easiest way to help your whole family. You know, skin irritations. Most people don't realize that their eczema and shit like that's coming from the water they shower in. Yeah, you can change your diet, put creams on. Yeah, look, it's, you know, the answers are out there.
So there's literally so much on this stuff that we can dive into. It's ridiculous. But I want to touch on a few things that are like really easy for people to get into. What's up with salt?
Salt.
What's the whole deal with salt in water? Like, why? Everybody's like, salt will give you heart attacks. It'll make your arteries hard as rock. You'll die of all these other things. You'll dehydrate yourself. What's the go?
You need salt for the osmotic pressure to get the water over the membranes. So
what's that? What's osmotic pressure? What's that?
Osmotic pressure is when the pressure differential sucks the water through the cell membrane. Okay.
How does salt affect that?
So good salt's important. I would say that you can look up Baja salt. It's probably got the most minerals in it. Next, I'd probably go Celtic sea salt, and then pink salt would be my third option. I'm not a super big fan of pink salt. A, because it's not renewable. They dig it out of caves. B, it's a little bit higher in fluoride and other bits and pieces. So sometimes it's not as ideal as they make it out to be. But like, put it this way, I ran out of Baja salt. There's some pink salt at my place at the moment from Woolies because I ain't going without salt.
Okay. So what about just good old table salt? Just the good old white stuff.
Well, table salt's going to do that osmotic thing, but you're going to have sodium chloride. You're going to have an imbalance. The great thing about having some of those high mineral salts is the Celtic sea salt and the Baja salt is they have a range of other minerals in them, and those little mineral, you know, we're products of the ocean. So those minerals.
How much? For those guys kind of listening, how much salt in your bottle of water? You got 750 drinking bottle. You're off. How much salt would you put on it of the good stuff?
So when I'm filling my bottle, I'll get 2 decent pinches, like in 1, 2 in the gob, mouthful of water, then 2 in my bottle of water, and I do that all day.
Cool. So, and what about the whole thing about? Are you worried about your arteries getting all stiff and that all stuff?
No,
why not?
Like a 1,000% not. And that's I'm just how deep do we go down the hole? Well, you've got these little channels, calcium gated pathways, and with EMFs, it's EMFs are really upsetting the system. So keeping your salt up is a great way of doing that. And
for those, just quickly for those guys, EMF is electromagnetic frequencies. So the stuff we're talking on now, your cameras, your phones, Wi-Fi, everything. Yeah. Just for the guys.
Now, yeah. So salt wise, and most people are potassium deficient. And that's some of that's to do with the EMFs, but our
Yeah.
diet's
Okay.
deficient. So I actually do a 2/3, 1/3 mix. I'll make a batch of salt. I'll get Baja salt or Celtic sea salt, 1/3, whack it on the scales. 2/3 of that, sorry, and then 1/3 of potassium chloride, which I get from iHerb. And so I just add 1/3 potassium chloride to 2/3 that, shake it up, and that's the salt that I use. But I'm 1,000% not. I'm 1,000% cool with dosing the system with salt. You need
Okay.
look. I'll actually have a couple of pinches of salt before I go to sleep, and only a small amount of water, like maybe 100 mils of water. And the reason I do that is because when I go to sleep, the electrical conductivity, because at the end of the day they're electrolytes. So, and your body heals by the brain pumping energy to places where the body's suffering. So when you increase that conductivity, that happens more effectively. You sleep better, you repair better, all that good stuff.
Okay. That's awesome. Thanks for that. These are super easy, helpful tips. Energized water, like by your Vortex, put salt in it. Obviously get hydrogen when you can. If you can't afford it, like salt and energized water is pretty good. How would you energize your water?
Look, like I said, yeah, there's plenty of ways of doing that. Vortex devices are optimal because they use nature's physics to make it happen.
Yeah.
There's water ionizers out there like Kangen machines and bits and pieces like that. I'm not a super big fan of those because when you electrically stimulate the water that hard, which those machines do, you destroy the structural integrity of the water. Yes, the water tastes smoother. Yes, and they make some big claims around pH and ORP and all that other sort of stuff. It's nice marketing for people that have spent, like those machines have just gone up here in Australia. As of May 1, I think they're $6,700.
For Kangen water.
I think they're a bit of a rort, but
with electrode, and you're destroying the water with electric.
Well, too much. You're frying water. You're literally like giving it a lightning bolt.
Wow. Okay. Where nature, you just run it through rocks, crystals, whatever, right? It's going all over the place.
And yes, lightning does hit the ocean, but there's a little bit of water in the ocean.
A little bit. Okay, cool. One of the things that are pretty big out there at the moment is fluoride. Right? Studies are coming out that the level of fluoride is having a direct impact on like the IQ of children, which is a pretty big thing for anybody who's a parent. I'm looking at becoming a parent, all going well. You know, all these things kind of come into light. And, you know, I come from a background, my father's a dentist. Fluoride was a pretty big thing. Brush your teeth with high fluoride toothpaste, all these other things. But you've got two versions of it because you're also like, not all fluoride is bad. What makes fluoride good? What makes it bad?
Again, the devil's in the details. The shit that they put in water is terrible for you. You know.
Okay, why?
Well, first off, the stuff they put in the water is fluoride's a dielectric blocker, and what that means in simple terms, it stops your cells making and holding energy. And
wow.
And at the end of the day, the electrical potential of your cells is the best reflection of your health. You've seen those live blood analysis where they take the picture of the blood and it's all clumped together, and then they do something and like hydrogen, for instance. 15 minutes
hydrogen
later,
grounding. Yep.
Yeah. Grounding, whatever, right? The electrical potential of the cells is all important, and that's why nicotine works. So we've had that discussion, but that's something for another day.
Yeah, that's for another day. We'll just dip that in there for the guys. They'll be like, "What, do I start smoking?" I'm like, "No, don't start smoking, guys. That's not the way forward." Just to make sure that guys are aware of that.
But fluoride, there's lots of studies out there that it's bad. the European health ministers probably 15 years ago, they took it out of the water in Europe, except for the UK, and the health ministers actually apologised to the public for putting it in there, which is that's a big deal, right?
So what
now,
makes fluoride good?
Well, like I said, it's the type of fluoride. So what they put into our water is hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is basically most of it comes from the production of fertilizer, and it's a waste product of fertilizer production. Now, when you see the trucks going to the water plants, they'll have hazmat signs on them, right? But it's okay to put it in your water and feed it to you in the water because it's good for your teeth. Just ask any dentist.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, when I showed Dad this, he's like, holy shit. Dad was one of the first guys to cut mercury. He almost lost his license back in the day. He was like, got to get mercury out of people's teeth. I'm like, no, you can't advertise that. We're going to remove your license. He's like, I'm going to pull it out of people's teeth. He ended up with some of the highest levels of mercury in his body out of anybody in New Zealand. It took him over a year to do the detox that normally takes somebody like 3 months. He couldn't have coriander. Because it would flick a detox at him, and it'd be like he'd smashed a crate of beer. It'd knock him out. The next day he was just hung over like anything. He's like, what has happened? And I was like, and then when he, opened up about fluoride, he's like, oh shit, you might be on something here. I'm like, I'm like, good man. He's an open-ideaed man.
Well,
I'm like,
that with all this health stuff, the biggest challenge is, are you open? Like I used to try and convince people, mate, got a question for you. Are you open to change? Yes or no? Yep, good. I'm happy to share. No, good. I'm happy to leave. I'm not going to waste my time or your time.
Save energy. Oh, mate, this has been so helpful. I can't wait to share it with our guys as well. And I'll email it all out, and I'll put your details and everything in there. Is there anything, and I realize there is a heap there, but is there anything that we haven't discussed that you'd love to share with the guys on this?
I suppose probably, yeah. Look, I think one of the things that you need to be wary of, and I'll touch on it quickly, is that most of the water products that are being sold out there are out there as a business to sell you shit, right? And they don't come with a duty of care. And I'll give you two examples. One is, like I spoke about earlier with the council, or the water suppliers or councils in New Zealand now, they dose the chlorine with ammonia. And the reason they do that is because chlorine interacts with organic compounds to form these things called trihalomethanes, which are known carcinogens. So we'll get rid of those by putting ammonia in the water. Now, most of the filtration companies out there will sell you something that takes the chlorine component out and leaves the ammonia in the water. Ammonia is tasteless and odorless. Now, if you're selling water equipment, then if you're not addressing the chlorine or the ammonia component, you're either negligent or ignorant. And if that's your business, you've got no right at being either of those things, right? If water's your business, and I had a really nice insight from a lady that bought a system off me about 6 weeks ago. She said, Jody, I'm a professional marketer. She said, I love that I can't find your website on the first 2 pages of Google. She said, because whenever I find anything on the first 2 pages of Google, I know that they're very proficient at marketing. It doesn't mean shit about the products. She said, the other thing that I like is your system doesn't come in a box, which tells me, because the outdoor systems, a lot of them now come with boxes, right? And I've lost lots of customers because they haven't had a box. I'm actually getting one designed and built at the moment. But she said they don't come in a box, which tells me it's about the filters and not about the pretty box. And
how good, I love it.
Yeah,
I love
and
that.
I was like, wow, they were two epic insights. Like, just to not buy shit off the first page of Google. Don't do it, she
Yeah.
said. I never buy stuff off the first page of Google because I know that they're proficient marketers. They're just propaganda machines. I was like,
I think one of the things that made me happy when we had our first call, I was like, what do I do? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you're like, okay, first things first, Josh, get your council to send through the water testing thing. I was like,
yeah,
okay, I have no idea how to do that. So I just contacted like council. They're like, sweet, send it over to me. It was 3 pages.
yeah.
I was like, what? So what's in my water? So 3. I was like, I remember sending it to you because you're like, look, you might not need something too major. Just send me the details when you get it. Send it to you. You're like, get the whole thing, bro. Just get the full system. I was like, okay, man, let's do it. Send it over. Got 2 of them, plugged them in. I remember the plumber even being here. He's like, what is this? I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, it's an awesome thing. And then next minute, everybody's around at my house getting the water. It's hilarious. But
Yeah, so
thank you so much for your time.
Just be careful. Like, that's, and I'm here.
That's my next thing.
Nothing makes.
How do we find you? How do we find you? How do the guys watching this find you?
0450 100 221.
Okay.
Don't give it out. Don't give it out. Don't give it out to good-looking ladies. I'm not available.
Perfect. I'll also put your email so they can reach out to you on email as well.
Yeah, that'll be good, mate. I'm actually just in the process of doing a branding exercise. I'm about to launch judiacarewater.com.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. My stuff's at easywatersolutions.com.au at the moment. That's where all the stuff is at the moment. There's a heap of stuff there. You'll probably get confused by looking at it all. Just give me a ring and we can talk about your situation. And I'll guide you to what the best deal is for your situation. I hope you enjoyed that podcast, the Uncommon Man podcast with Jody. You can tell he's an incredible man, incredibly smart, and there's lots of rabbit holes that we could go down. We are going to book at another time to have a chat with Jody because there are other elements that you can use in your life to greatly impact your health and energy and vitality that are just around your house that you can change to really change the things for you and your loved ones. Now, if you want to be connected with Jody, please just join our High Performance Man group. He is in there. You can connect with him. You can send him emails. You can send him messages. I can put you in a group chat or however you need to be connected. The man is a genius. He is really about people getting the best out of their life, getting the most vitality and a long, healthy, happy life. So please reach out. Come join us in the High Performance Man group. Look forward to seeing you there.